are one of the most positive, sunny, straightforwardly empathetic people, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I think it would be really, really lovely to have some idea of what goes on behind the scenes for you, because I know it hasn't been plain sailing, because when is it ever? But also you have some extra challenges in being trans, and I'm sure a host of other life stuff that happens to all of us. So to start, do you just want to tell me about a typical day? Like what happens in the world of Nathan?
Now, do you mean at work or?
Yeah, both. I'm interested in both ways, work and
day. Me. That's a very interesting question. Well, I have kids, so it's usually a balance with my husband of, who's getting up at 5 a.m. and he usually takes the brunt of that because I'm the worker. So we kind of get disturbed early, but they are amazing kids and they usually brighten my morning. I usually get out of bed probably half an hour before I'm actually at work. I don't take very long to get ready. I just have a shower and I'm driving. And so I work in community midwife-ness now. I'm in a new team and it's now in my hometown. So everything's very close together. It's quite nice. I'm only driving sort of 10 minutes to work. That's pretty good. But also it means that the work is very present in my life as well. So I'm looking after people who go to my children's school and all of that stuff. And I'd say I'm missing the birth aspect working in community.
Yeah.
But it's a new challenge and I'm feeling less of kind of the high level of stress that I was getting in the unit. So but it's more full time obviously as well. So
okay, I have like 1,000 questions for you now. So is it the stress? I'll double back on a few things, but the stress, is it because you're now working without the imminent obstetric emergencies, or is it because of the unit? I mean, these are really difficult questions, and we don't want to say any unit isn't good at creating the right atmosphere, but like, what's it like for you?
Yeah, I mean, well, no, it's not about the unit, I don't think, because I've actually worked in 3 hospitals. My first year as a student was in one hospital, my second 2 years were in another, and then I moved for my qualifying, for my first job. So I've worked in 3 trusts, and though they're all different, I wouldn't say any of them were better in terms of stress on the consultant unit, because it just is, isn't it? And so my unit is actually very small. It's something like 3,000 births a year, and I trained in a 7,000 birth trust a year, so it's actually quite little, which has pros and cons. Like there's less trained staff per shift, a lot less, 7 or 8, but that means that it's very close. The team will know each other, they trust each other. There's a lot of involvement from management and they have to step in quite a lot. So no, I wouldn't say it's the trust. It's just, for me, it's part, I wouldn't say it's the impending possibility of emergencies for me. It's sort of, you know what I'm like. I'm very much an advocate for the normal and the natural, and respecting women's bodies and respecting sort of the time that labour can take. And I can't really cope with the obstetric unit in the way that we're trying to limit the time all the time, and everything is just on this time limit, and that's not one unit, that's the NHS, and that's
it's not one unit at all. It is almost, I hugely respect midwives. Any midwife who goes to work and does their job, I have nothing but respect for. I also think supporting normal birth can be somewhat counterculture. So that was one source of stress for you.
It just sort of wears me down slowly. because I feel like I can't. So my skill is the patience. That is my skill, to allow birth to happen. And when I'm being pushed to not give it that time and space, then I'm under stress, because it's not how I want to work. But also it is what you say about just never knowing what you're going to walk into. And when you're turning up in the morning, and you do get used to it, but you kind of get like numb to it. But it's still going on in the background. You're taking on this emotional and psychological stress of seeing some tough stuff. I don't want to scare anyone watching.
No, I think anybody who's joining midwifery knows that it is about the most adult profession you could be involved in. And that comes with stuff that's going to shock you, stuff that the general public would need counselling for. And it also comes with immense highs that you think about years later and just think, oh, that was so cool.
Yeah.
And, you know,
and it is, you know, and it's much more highs than lows.
Yeah.
You know? And so that's what keeps me going, and it always has. But I think it was more that my way of working didn't fit into the obstetric unit, rather than the obstetric unit, you know, not being a good place to work. So in community, I feel that because part of the job is managing your time, so you have your own diary, you have your own caseload of people, and you know which ones need longer appointments, you know which ones, you know, the postnatal visit might take an hour, but for some people it might take half an hour. And it's really nice being able to just organise my time and give women what they need, really.
Lovely. Where did your patience come from? Because you start doing a couple of years of midwifery and suddenly the skills that you're good at float to the surface. And I'll tell you mine. I'm really, really good at giving people difficult feedback or having hard conversations without offending their egos.
Okay.
That's they used to send me in when, I remember this in New Zealand, there was a couple that was adopting a baby and mum decided, actually, I don't want this baby to be adopted. And it turned into a really nasty, shouty situation. And I went in, I just stood there for a little while and said, okay, you feel like this, you feel like this. How do we want this kid to remember this day? And everybody just went, thunk, and it was fine. Like, we found our way through it. I'm not good at, but that was the one that was identified by, a very small team, like the one you were describing. So where did your patience come from?
Just your volume's gone a bit quiet.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
I'm going to pick up my microphone.
Oh, my patience. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I know the answer to this.
Yeah.
So I was home educated, partly. Okay. So I was never forced into time constraints ever until I chose to accept them by going to college. But the other part of it is I had a major operation. I had major surgery when I was 12. Like the worst pain ever, worse than labour by 100 times, because they didn't know what it was and they left me. And they didn't leave me, but they were trying to figure it out. They didn't want to operate without figuring it out. So for about 24 hours, I was in like the most horrendous pain. And eventually they operated on me, and it took like a 1 hour keyhole operation, became this full abdominal surgery that took like 4 hours. And I had 5 blood transfusions and all of this. And so I nearly died like twice. And after that, I was left, because of the blood transfusions, I had blood trauma, which is because I was so small physically, and like most of my blood had been replaced with other people's. God. So literally, it takes years for the blood to be accepted by your body, and because it was most of it. So I think the truth of it was I was just like really, really severely anemic, but no doctors would believe that, and they kept thinking that I was something psychologically wrong. But I was really ill for years and years. And so that was from like 12 to 17.
Crikey.
Which is a massive development part of your life, isn't it? And what it forced me to do, being chronically anemic to that level, was just to be very slow and very gentle and very quiet. Because it's not just your physical body with anemia. Your brain can't function properly because you haven't got enough oxygen in your brain. So everything was very slow. And I used to do weird things, like I'd lie still and see how long I could not move and things like that. So it's just I know it sounds really bizarre, but it did give me this very strong ability to stay calm and still. Right? So, you know, when midwives, they talk about sitting on their hands. It's very easy for me to not move.
Might it be true to say you were plugged into your physiology as well?
Yeah, very in tune with everything. Yeah, I think so. But also I can go with the energy of birth very easily, because both my parents were, well, the closest word to it is traffic. The closest word to it is pagan, but they're not really. Well, my dad's more pagan. My mum is describes herself as a mystic. But the point is, I grew up meditating as well, and tuning in to people's feelings and emotions, and yeah.
Cool. Right. I'm just gonna stop us here and say that I grew up in a family where we did not meditate. And I told my brother for years, who is 6 years younger than me and is a vegan Buddhist social worker, and that's everything you need to know about Rob. He told me for years, you need to meditate, it's going to make a difference. And I was like, no, I go running, I don't need to meditate. Yeah. Just meditate. If anybody's listening to this and thinks they should maybe have a go, just do it. It's 10 minutes. And it does. It's so annoying because I so wanted it to be not true, but it absolutely does change your life.
Entirely true.
Yeah, do it for 10 days in a row and then come and tell me that it hasn't done a thing for you. It's so irritating, but we really do need to meditate.
Well, yes. I mean, it is really, there's nothing, like, you don't have to be spiritual at all. You don't have to believe anything. All it is making your brain still so that it can do some work that normally it can't do.
Yes, absolutely. So like we were, me and Nathan were fielding a post in the secret community for Midwives in the Making on Facebook. And you'll know Nathan is one of our wonderful moderators. It was a very difficult post. It involved infant loss and some tangled emotions and some legalities. And it was very stressful for everybody. So this isn't as big a deal as something happening in practice actively, but I definitely use meditation to try and work out what to do. You just stop, slow down, and it does work. So if you can in practice, I would say that's a really good thing. So I have some questions about your kids and what it means to have a parent who's a midwife in a sec, but I just wanted to ask, so you have experience of being trans and you have experience of home birth and having your babies. If there is somebody out there who is about to walk in to their first trans client and they want to know what might be a good headspace for them to take in, so you're there with them, what would you say to them before they walk in as a student or midwife?
Yeah, like hold their hands and be like, listen, right? Now, so I think the most important thing is that they are just a person. And you know, we get very used to, we see so many clients that you can lose that individuality of the client, and you can end up expecting to see something when you walk in. And I do it, like I read a name and I expect what I'm going to see because I've seen 5 different people who are similar with that name. Do you know what I mean? You just kind of get really used to it. And so if it's the first time you've met, or you think that you've met a certain type of person, it would just be about taking a moment to remember that, just think of it like meeting anyone, and take yourself out of midwifery for a second and just meet them as a person. And I think the other most important thing is following their lead. So the difficult part of kind of explaining to people how to be around trans people is that there's no one right answer. I can't just write you a list of what to say and how to say it, because trans people are different. There's lots of variations of being trans, and there's lots of different words that people use and different terms, things like that. So initially, just be like, hi, and break the ice and chat about the weather and do your normal thing. And then I'm seeing a lot of people say something like, I see your name is this. What would you like me to call you? Is that the right name? And then you can say, my pronouns are so-and-so. What are yours? And then I would follow that up with, so that you don't have to keep explaining. Shall I write that in the notes? Yeah. So you give the trans person the option of making it visible, and they might say no. They might not want it to be visible. They might only want it to be that person. The other thing to note that I think is really important is, because it's unusual. So with midwifery, when you meet a new client, you book a new client, anything that's outside of usual, I think we think consultant, right? Because we have a list of what's normal, and then anything out of that goes to a consultant appointment. And I think we've got to be really careful with trans people. Just because it's unusual, they might have not come across it before. I can imagine a midwife saying, oh, I'm not sure about this, so I'll just send you to a consultant. And actually, it might not be appropriate, and it might be quite difficult for the trans person to hear that because you're trans, I don't know what to do, so I need the doctor.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to say it like it's in my videos as well, but the only reasons we refer to a consultant is if testosterone was taken whilst pregnant. If any testosterone was taken before they were pregnant and they stopped before they got pregnant, then there's no problem.
Yeah, cool.
There's no harm to the baby. The testosterone goes out of the system within 2 weeks, so there is no harm. And usually, if you manage to get pregnant, then their hormone level, their female hormone levels have raised to a point where it's completely safe to sustain the pregnancy anyway. So yeah, only if they've taken testosterone while they're actually pregnant, then I would say a referral to a consultant is important. And I would also say maybe encourage the trans person to talk to their gender specialist as well.
Cool.
They're going to know the things about things. And the other reason to think about a consultant would be if the trans person is considering a cesarean birth.
Sure.
I think that I've talked about this to a lot of people, like Dr. Marie Green, who's a researcher in LGBTQ plus birth, and other trans guys and non-binary people, all these people. And we agree that being trans in and of itself, no matter if there's been any medical intervention or not, is a reason to discuss the way in which birth is going to happen, and is a reason to think about elective cesarean section.
Yep.
So yeah, for I think it's a psychological reason that is big enough that an elective cesarean section should be an option. Yep. However, the trans person might be like, oh no thank you. And then you wouldn't need to refer to the doctor. Exactly. But if they said, oh yes, I'm thinking about it because either emotional or psychological stress, or any surgery on the lower part of their body, then consultant to discuss cesarean birth as an elective option. Otherwise, if they're happy to give birth to their genitals, and they haven't taken testosterone when they were actually pregnant, then obviously it's just about their normal medical conditions, but midwifery-led care is appropriate.
Cool. That's really good to know.
That made sense. I wanted to make it as clear as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are the important bits. I think every client is complicated in a way. You have to try and get to know everybody. And
that's why bookings take so long.
Sorry, that's why bookings take so long. So what I would do is my normal trick for good communication, especially when you're trying to set up a relationship with somebody you don't know, like my rule is they say something and I go, I hear you are thinking about the way you would like to have your baby. You're a little bit concerned about this. Is that right? Have I got it? Or is there anything else? And I usually say, is there anything else to, I mean, loads of people I talk to, like student midwives and lecturers and all kinds of people. But if you say, is there anything else? There's usually like 3 or 4 more rounds to get to where you need to be. And people just want to be heard and validated a lot of the time, don't they?
I've experienced you saying that a lot.
Sorry, does it get annoying?
Yeah, no, it's really good and I should use it more in my life. I just forgot to say about something that's come up a lot from my people is about how important just trans identity is and how important it is to validate it. Sometimes when people aren't sure what it's all about, they just kind of hear it once and then it goes under the radar again. So it's just really important to keep reminding yourself, okay, they use these pronouns and it's really important to this person. And it doesn't matter what they look like, it matters what they say their pronouns are and what they say their energy is, basically. You know, are they masculine, are they feminine, are they non-binary? And then you need to hear that and really just keep reminding yourself how important it is.
Yeah, and it's okay to be corrected as well. Like,
absolutely.
It's a good idea to try very hard not to be at all worried by being corrected.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's about ego again, I think, sometimes, isn't it? Like what you were saying about ego. There was something I was going to say. It's something that Mars Lord, the amazing Mars Lord, Black birth activist, woo, shout out to her. But something that me and her always talk about. So I have ego and anxiety around discussing racial issues because of my complete white privilege and ignorance to it, and she struggles the other way around with my transness and discussing that and asking questions about that. So we have this agreement between us that it's okay for us to make mistakes, and it's about saying sorry, learning and moving on. And that comes from her. This is what she preaches about, which is brilliant. It's just, it's okay to mess up, but keep trying and don't get hung up on it. Don't keep apologizing. Just say sorry, correct yourself, move on and learn.
Yeah, that's how we do it. And you can't you can't just learn it all academically in a room somewhere and then go and apply it. Like,
no,
this is the thing.
Unfortunately.
Community, we just have to keep learning out loud in front of people, and that's how stuff gets done. Never going to be perfect. Okay, so you had kids before you started training as a midwife?
During.
Oh, it was during. Okay. Tell me more about that. Tell me how on earth you juggle having little ones and being a midwife.
Yeah. I got pregnant a month into the course.
Woohoo!
Yeah. So I was like, let's just do both. Okay, let's do it. And we desperately wanted a baby. It was so funny because we were kind of trying. We were really young, but we were kind of trying before we went to uni. And then the month that we went to uni, we were like, okay, it hasn't happened. We're not going to try anymore. We're going to go to uni instead. And then it happened. So I was so desperate and passionate to do midwifery that I couldn't step off at that point. I was like, no, I just want to do as much as I can before I go. So I stayed in the course. I did about 9 months of the first year. I came out, had a baby. I had a year off with the first one and went back into the lower cohort. But with the second one, I was nearly at the end of third year. So I literally had 8 weeks off and went back and did 600 hours of placement catch-up in about 4 months, which was too much.
Yeah.
Oh, you might oh no, it's back. It's weird.
It's back.
I don't know what's going on with the volume. Anyway, it was too much, and like, we talk about burnout. That was the ultimate burnout. I didn't want to do it anymore. Like, that was it. Anyway, what was the question?
How do you cope with, okay, so do you think, looking back on it, it might have been better to organise that time, the 600 hours, differently? Or do you think that's just, it was shitty, but you had to do it that way to get
yeah, I mean, so part of this goes back to being about me. Part of my illness as a child, and then also, I think possibly the home education as well, I think I was a bit lazy with it. And I think that part of my growth into a midwife was learning how to push myself to get up and go to work.
Mm-hmm.
That was new for me. This was my first job. I'd never worked before. I was straight out of A levels. So that was hard. And some of that time was to do with pregnancy sickness, but others were just about laziness. And just learn. And it's not just laziness. It is about prioritizing being happy.
Yeah.
You know, but anyway, I got through. The way that I've managed, a lot of people ask how have I managed to have 2 kids and qualify so young, and the way that I've done it is by having my husband. So, you know, I can't unfortunately tell someone how they'll be able to do it if they're alone, because I don't know how I could have done it if I was alone, because he finished his course and then was a stay-at-home dad for a year, and he's still a stay-at-home dad now.
Mm-hmm.
So he's the reason that I've achieved what I have. And our family support as well. But yeah, that's my only answer, really.
Yeah, that's lovely. I went to, you know, Mary Cronk, the amazing breech expert, Mary Cronk. We call her the Cronkmeister, with her sayings.
Yes,
amazing. Further discussion, I shall have to regard as harassment. So I went to her funeral, and because it just felt important to go along and honour that, and I felt really weird going, to be honest, but I always just had this little voice going, I think you should go to that, that's quite important to carry it forward. And the thing I learned most from that was that her husband, she got married very young when she was a nurse, and her husband supported her. You know, we say, like, behind every great man there's a great woman. This was the other way around. Like, he had her back on every occasion you could imagine, like, to the point where he went, and they were boat people for quite a while. They lived on a boat, and she was looking after a lady in labour who didn't want to go into hospital, and he went and he chopped a hole in the deck of the boat in case they had to get out too fast. Like,
wow,
good access. But it just, I think if you can have family and friends, you can do it on your own. And I would really like to interview some people who've done it on their own. But even then, I think you need friends support, and you need really good childcare, and
But this is partly why sort of mental health in this country is getting so bad. This culture of trying to do everything on your own. You've achieved more if you've been on your own, and it's so backwards, and particularly with parenting. Like, there's a mum down the street who was desperately struggling, and I was like begging her, like, please ask me for help. I'm here. It takes a village. We should be living in a village with the children running around in the middle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Parents watching them, you know, it's so constant because you're doing it on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. And that friends thing, I don't know, you can't have your partner doing 100% of it, like everything that you need as a person. I've got so many friends, like midwife friends and business friends and people I ask for support, and I think we're all just a sum of the people we know, really, and that's great, and that's lovely. So how do you think your kids react to you being a midwife? What are they like? How do they Interact with that one for me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's all they've ever known because, like I say, the first one was born when I was training. But they love it. Like my oldest is 5, and she often says that I go and help women, and I help babies be born, and sometimes she talks about me caring for the babies as well. She likes my stethoscope because I do night piece, so I have my stethoscope. And so basically her school, her primary school, she was in reception, and they were doing a term about people who help others, which was really great. I know. Yeah. It's a fantastic school. So they had a policewoman in there, and they had a fireman in there and all this. But they also asked me to come in and talk to the kids, which felt really like an honor, because I think sometimes, I don't know, sometimes I feel a bit like midwifery is forgotten because it's so niche, you know, and it really felt valuing of what I do. So I got loads of little bits and pieces, my Sonicade and like name tags and
cool
and everything. I put dolls in there, and I spoke for 30 minutes to each class. I thought I'd be speaking to all of them, but no, it was like 30 minutes in each class, and there were 3. But it was great, and now they all recognize me, which is adorable. They'll wave at me.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for being around parents who are involved in caring. Like my mum was a nurse, and then she ran a nursery school for a while and things like that. But I think it's I do think it's a positive thing, even though it's difficult to juggle, and maybe especially if you're a single parent, you miss some stuff. I think seeing your parent modeling that kind of career is important, and there are ups and downs to that. But I don't want to say somebody's experience isn't really important if they found it really tough, but I do think it's a good thing.
And I'm just so grateful that my children still have a stay-at-home parent.
Yeah.
But something that is really gutting is that my salary can't support us as a family of 4, and we're still on benefits. And I'm not, ashamed of being on benefits, because I feel like that's part of my salary because I work so damn hard.
Yeah.
But just think there's no value in family anymore. No one is valuing the person staying at home, raising those people of the future. And one person can't earn enough. It's just not right.
It's absolutely bizarre. I mean, I don't have the words to get into that one, really. I just think it's absolutely ridiculous that we don't pay midwives enough to support their own families.
Words about it, really.
Say what? Yeah, well, hopefully it will come full circle.
Yeah, you don't have babies yet, do you?
Me? No, not yet.
Do you want one?
Yes, I do want babies. Should we get into this? I'm very happy to talk about it. I think I do want babies. To be honest, I only have like 2 periods a year, so I think I've got a very realistic expectation of what that could be like. Yeah. But I am bizarrely okay. So this is why I said people are complicated, and you should get to know them, because it might be very bizarre for somebody to hear me say I'm not that worried about it, because I'd be really cool with adopting, because I know, I have close friends going through IVF who just do not want to adopt, and that is not what their soul is telling them to do, and I get that, and you can't negotiate with that, and it's really tough. But for me, I'm really fairly relaxed about it. Bizarrely, I'm just sort of like, it could be, but it's not. I mean, it's not quite the right time in terms of relationships and stuff. But yeah, of course I want little ones. I've got an adorable nephew who I get to steal, who's 2, who's just lovely, and counts the boobies in the room as well. So we do heads and arms and legs, and then we do boobies.
He needs to know at any given time where they are,
what they're doing. But, so what I wanted to ask about as well, there are some changes within supervision, and there are some changes coming in terms of future midwife. And so students they don't need to have 40% of the time with their main mentor anymore. So these are interesting changes happening through the Nursing and Midwifery Council, and I know how passionate you are about working with students. What are your thoughts on this?
Excuse me, I do have a cold.
Thank you for being
so when I was training, it was really, really hard to get the students the allotted time with a sign-off mentor. And the unis were under like so much strain just to try and get students with, and the amount of backlash from the students as well, which is understandable, but everyone was so angry that they couldn't get enough time. So that was very hard for sort of the lecturers, and then I'm sure that went higher up as well. And unfortunately, with the funding that we have and with the resources that we have, I think that's why it's gone this way. So rather than getting what we needed, which was more midwives trained to do that job, they've had to go the other way and say, well, the students don't need that anymore. And I think it's heartbreaking. I think that because I'm never that far apart. I've never forgotten the fact that midwifery is ancient. This is practices from the beginning. This is like the stuff of earth and life and breath, everything, and we do lose that in this business-like conveyor belt-like system. And one of the things that connects me to that ancient practice is working with students, because it feels like I feel like we've been doing that forever, training up the next generation and passing the gifts and passing the skills. So yeah, just for it to be less valued, or for us not to be able to put it in such high value and such standards is a shame, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not saying that other professionals won't bring something, you know, but I guess I just think it's really valuable as it is.
Yeah, it's having that one-on-one. So student midwives will be able to work with everybody from pediatricians to maternity support workers to obstetricians and still get their hours to get signed off, essentially. I think you will need a sign-off supervisor, I think they're calling it. But it just means you don't have to work 40% of the time with a lead mentor anymore. And I think you're right. Like, I have a midwifery mentor called Lynn, who is just amazing. And remember her as this little ray of sunshine blasting around labour ward, just doing nice things. And I learned a huge amount from her. And I'm reading Millie Hill's book. I've got a preview copy of Give Birth Like a Feminist. And one of the things she's writing about in the origins of midwifery is that we're good with working with pain because we understand it is just pain, and it shouldn't, as soon as it turns into suffering, then you need to do something about it. And one of the key things that Lynn always taught me, I think, was she was just always trying new tricks to keep that woman able to be with her pain as opposed to it turning into terror or suffering. And that, I think that is very difficult to gain from other professionals, because it's just simply not their jam. They're
not midwives for a reason. It takes a very special person to qualify as a midwife. And we lose some on the way for a reason. The ones that qualify have that special something. And yeah, I absolutely agree. Go on.
Okay, what would you say if you've got a very clever new student midwife starting off, she's passionate or he's passionate, what would you say to them? Like, what's bad advice and what's good advice?
Wow.
Hard one.
Yeah, what would I say? I would say that I was that person. my passion. I was told so many times, like, oh my God, you're so bubbly and overexcited. And I was often told, I can't, if I had a pound for the amount of people that said, God, you're so excited, that'll be gone next year, or you'll lose that, or, you know, wait till you've been qualified as long as I have. And I've never lost it.
You can tell.
I've never lost it. And it's like in your face.
Yeah.
So people thought I was just a bubbly first year, and then they thought I was bubbly second year, and then they thought third year, and then they thought newly qualified.
Yeah.
And here I am, a year and a half into being qualified, and I'm so excited. And,
yeah,
you know, it should make you feel that fire. And anyway, so I was that person, and I would say to them, don't let people tell you that you'll lose it, because actually not all of us do. A lot of us don't.
No.
And, you know, of course there were times when I thought that the flame had died out, and that's burnout, isn't it? So those times when I feel like I don't love it anymore, it's always burnout.
Yeah.
And as soon as I've done some self-care and some reflection and some quiet time, it comes back. And I was having that just this week, because I worked flat out in order to then have a longer stretch of the summer holidays off.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in that stretch now. So for the first week, I was like, oh, I don't want to go back. That feeling of, oh God. And now talking to you, I'm getting all pumped again.
Yeah, ditto. I mean, you know my story. We could go through that, but I really love supporting midwives and students and doing stuff online. But when it gets late at night, and I've done like sometimes I'm in front of the computer for like 14 hours, and that's not great, but it's what needs to be done on occasion to get everything done. And I've got to the point now where I go, oh yeah, we're in hour 12. This is about the time when you start to really hate everything. Just keep going for a little bit longer. Oh, okay, hour 13, you think it's never going to work. Hour 14, okay, well, it's nearly bedtime, and tomorrow you'll feel a bit better about the situation. But try not to listen to that criticism for now. And that's kind of, and when it comes to burnout, it's huge at the moment. It's a massive problem. We can't get rid of sleep deprivation. That's one of the massive problems in the NHS at the moment. But what I'd say, if you are experiencing burnout, there are times to go and see your GP. So if you've got flashbacks or intense shame about things, or, you know, you're starting to, you can't sleep properly when you have the opportunity to, etc., that's to go and see your GP. But if you're just on that cusp of, my passion's gone, I don't know what to do because I need to keep going for these 3 days because I've got my summer holidays coming up, I'd say go for curiosity as opposed to trying to manufacture passion. So you've got this person in front of you, and they say, oh, I'd quite like this about my birth. And if it just makes you turn your head slightly and go, oh, I'm interested in that, like usually you can follow the road back to the person, and that's really helpful for me. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, so sorry, what do you mean, like using curiosity to kind of spark your interest again?
Yeah, so if you're having to push through in practice, you need to keep going for those few days and you've just lost it for the moment, I would aim for curiosity as opposed to passion, because it's easier to capture when you're burned out.
Sure. Okay, I get that. Yeah, like and I think that part of that for me would be connection. So something that raises my spirits is when I've had a good connection with a client. And the other thing that, I don't know about you, but there's something about every birth, no matter what happens, the adrenaline rush. So I find that one of the biggest burnouts is when I've been with one client for 12 hours and they haven't actually birthed.
Yeah.
When you've been in that labour room, that same small hot room for 12 hours. Because what I find is during labour, you're giving and giving yourself, but at the moment of birth, you receive. And it's partly adrenaline, but it's also the joy. And I think that new babies come out with energy just pouring out of them, and you can just, it just soaks into you. So
Yeah.
part of it would be connect, find something interesting, like you say, and do some research, do some reading. But also, if you can be there when a baby's born, your spirits will
Yeah. It's just a massive oxytocin flush, isn't it? You're like, oh, here we are. And people forget that oxytocin, we think, oh, it's the cuddle hormone, it just makes you feel nice and sleepy. It's in the adrenaline class. Like it's there in parents for a reason, who have to be up at 3 a.m. for this screaming item.
Yeah. It's always highest for me when I'm like, so I get a really special rush when I'm on call for home birth.
Oh, cool.
And when I get a call as well, and like I'm literally grinning as I'm putting my trousers on. I'm so excited. And I get in the car, and the drive to the birth as well. Oh my God. Nothing else feels like that in life.
It's really happy about it. It's like my I've got no, she's not independent, she's a home birth midwife up north, and she messaged me one morning in all caps and went, I got 2 overnight, women are amazing. And I was like, wow, yeah, I think you need to go to bed as well. She's awesome. Okay, so some more questions. We've got about 10 minutes. When you see a student midwife in practice, how do you know they're going to be okay? They're going to make it. What the ones that you look at and you go, yeah, that's good. That one's going to, yep. What makes you think that?
That's really interesting. I guess I've never verbalized that before because I wouldn't want to put anyone down. But the ones that catch my eye are the ones that have the same expression that I had on their face, just this kind of excitement and absolute fascination with everything. So the ones that are just as interested in catching a baby or cuddling a baby, to the ones that are, watching me do a catheter like it's the most important thing in the world. It's that amazement and focused interest. And I've seen there's been really bad scenarios where a student's been on her phone in the room with the client. They're like, what are you doing?
I hate to feel old, but that wasn't a thing in my day. We did not have our phones.
That's just what? But it's the kind of, so the disconnect. So the phone is a really extreme example of this kind of lack of interest, this kind of apathy, disconnection with what's happening. So you're trying to explain something to them, they don't look that interested, they're not asking questions. I don't mind if students get questions wrong. Like I often, to be fair, my teaching style is not aiming questions at people, because I personally don't think that teaching style is that helpful, because it didn't help me. Maybe it helps other students, I don't know. But it's not about knowing the answers. It's just about being interested in the answers. You know what I mean? I think that's what I want to say.
Yeah. So put your phone away, and fascination, and keeping naive. Like, that's fine. Yeah. Just go with it. That's
the other thing I will say, though. Again, it's about burnout, and I think that students are obviously the most easily burnt out. They are learning something new, and I think that's something that my colleagues who are mentors forget sometimes, is, and I just know it because I was recently a student, like I'm still quite new, is this kind of the amount of brain processing going on just to learn a new skill. Sorry. The amount of processing they're doing to learn the very basic is taking so much brain energy that sometimes they won't be able to smile and be bubbly and be interested because they're so worn out. or close to tears. I've had a lot of students who are going and going and going, and then they completely break down. And I just kind of want to say to them, it's okay to step out, just say a quiet word to the mentor. I'm struggling. I'm just going to take a minute, step out the room. The mentor will come to you and be like, what's going on? You all right? And then, feel it. And, I guess it's okay to struggle is the other thing.
That's probably where it's gonna you're gonna get your experience, and that's gonna happen. So we talked about this with Hannah, who's also one of our mods in the secret community, and she has fibromyalgia. Sorry? Oh, of course you were with you. Oh my god, we've got the little
we're both in the same trust. Yeah, go on.
So I think what I picked up most from her, I don't even know if she's realized this, but her level of self-advocacy and ability to say to even a very experienced midwife, you have just told me that I need to be in this room for 12 hours. That's not a physical possibility for me. I will be stepping out for 5 minutes. See you in a minute. And I think, and then I asked her about that, and I was like, well, that's quite brave. And she was like, well, kind of is brave, but it's what needs to happen. And I just thought in my head, I'm worth more than that, and I've got to be here for this woman, so I'm going to go and take 5 minutes. And it does take a lot to do. But actually, I think those kind of acts of courage, small acts of courage, that's the stuff that's going to change the NHS, really. So, and not being,
I had to do many times.
I
think I want to tell people this quickly, because so part of coming at it from being so ill, when I started training, I was very physically, it's kind of like being unfit, just never ever being used to doing anything for that long and that hard. And in my first year, so my first shift on the consultant unit, I made it 10 hours and went home crying with pain from my feet and legs, like the actual physical pain, nothing else. And that continued, like through my first year it was really bad, second year it was a bit better, third year it was better, and now I can do it. But I want people to know that I went and sat down so many times. I took myself out of the room so many times. I cried so many times. And I still got here. And now I don't need to do that. I don't need to step out. I'm fine. For 12 hours, I can do it for 12 hours. And it used to be that I could never do 2 shifts in a row as well. And now I can do 4. So your resilience just physically does get a lot better.
Yeah, it's like going to the gym. You get sore and you think, oh, this is awful. And then the next time you go after you've recovered, it's a little bit easier and a little bit easier. And it's just the same thing. So tell me about self-advocacy, because this is something you've had to do.
Yeah, we haven't really talked much about trans stuff.
No, we haven't, have we? Well, we kind of have it.
Excited about midwiferiness. It's good though. It's good. Yeah, self-advocacy. Wow. Well, I mean, when I was at uni, I completely failed with in terms of my identity. For the physical side, like I said, I was very good at excusing myself. But for identity-wise, I'm sorry, I feel like I'm slipping down. So people probably know if they've seen my YouTube channel and stuff, like I tried to come out at uni and I didn't, well, it wasn't my fault, obviously, but like I didn't do a very good job of it. I didn't tell everyone, and I think that was the problem. So sort of leading a double life. Some people at uni knew, and then people at work didn't, and yeah, but there was a few times. So you really, I mean, that's when you're trans, and probably when it's probably a shared experience of a lot of any minority, really. It feels like constant self-advocacy in terms of getting people to see you for who you are. And when I was in uni, I tried and didn't have the strength to do it. So I just stopped trying. and forgot about it. There were people at work in London who, I mean, just no one understood. There was no one at work who could hear me or see me. So it wasn't even worth saying, like, honestly. But these days, I'd say I'm getting used to it now. And everyone knows now, which helps, because there are people who help you do it. There are people who advocate for you, and there are people you have to advocate yourself in front of. But I do still feel like every day I'm advocating for myself. Every day I still get at least one question about it. About what I'd prefer, about what name to use, what pronouns to use, what should they say to women, what if women ask questions. So it's still constant all the time. And yeah, I don't really have any advice about it.
It's just another way of exhaustion, really, isn't it? But I think, I don't know, I love having you as part of the secret community, and I commend you for it, but also I wish you didn't have to do it. Do you think it will get better? Like, I was watching, what was I watching the other day? Some interview, and they were talking about Queer Eye, and they said that the first series was so radical because it was like, oh, we're going to introduce this idea, and now it's much more about acceptance and being who you are. And I remember the attitudes towards gay members of staff back when I was training, and I think things have changed quite a lot. I mean, what do you reckon? Do you reckon we're heading in the right direction? Or?
Oh yeah. So something that I say a lot to other trans people. So you know the Stonewall riots, which were kind of it was where when being gay was illegal, police raided small places where gay people would go to be themselves. So police raided them, forced them out on the streets, and then they started rioting. And that's what Pride comes from.
Okay, no, I didn't know that. I was thinking I knew. I was thinking about a young man that was killed, but do you go on?
No. So look up the Stonewall riots. Basically, Pride started as a riot. So the first Pride was a riot march down, whatever street for freedom, and it worked, thank God. And what I say to trans people at the moment is, it feels like in the digital age we're rioting now. So it feels like for trans people, how it was 50 years ago, the gay community. So we're rioting now, and things are changing. We're getting very loud, and a lot of it's bad. Some of it, yes, I think things are changing, but it's involving a huge push and a huge amount of advocacy. And what I was going to say was, because you asked something about, will it get easier? And the answer is yes. So when you're trans and you're mid physical changes, that is where the self-advocacy is constant. So, and I'm getting more confident to say it now, because I feel like it's visible, I guess, and also just getting used to it. But at some point, something will change over, and I will physically pass as male, and all of that fighting for myself will calm down. Because aside from people who might try and take me back to who I used to be, for the majority, they'll read me as I feel inside. So then the advocacy will become about other people. So when I hear, something in a conversation, I will have the energy to advocate for everyone else, which is nice. And it's going to be nice to be a feminist white man.
Yes.
I will fight for you. I'm going to fight for Black people and Black women and women's rights and everything, and it's just very cool to gain that kind of privilege. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome, and I always try to do that even when it's really uncomfortable. I used to be a bit more on attack mode, to be perfectly honest. I used to be a bit more, do not say that, that is not an okay thing to say, but I found that didn't really work. People just got really annoyed. So what I say now is, well, that sounds like a very difficult situation. I wonder how we could help X, Y, Z, and that seems to work a bit more, but
I agree. I think, you know, people do get very angry, and rightfully so. But if you actually want to make change, you have to, and people might be annoyed at me for saying this, but you have to meet people where they're at. You know, you can't just expect them to be up here with you and completely get it. You have to meet them down here and help them climb up there.
You just have to think to what end. Like, you can't just
I know.
high on the fire of self-righteousness. Like, as good as that is, as commendable as that is, it doesn't work sometimes. But okay, right, it is 12:04. I have taken up enough of your time. I think I want to respect your time, but thank you so much for coming and talking about all of this and being so honest, and basically just for being you. Absolutely lovely talking to you. Fantastic.
Always nice to see you as well.
Yeah, you as well. And we'll pop this video up in Wholehearted Midwives.
Yes. Can I put it on my YouTube as well?
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah, I'll download it and we'll get it on your YouTube channel. That's a lovely idea. Cool. Yes. And we just go and check out Nathan's YouTube channel, and he can be found in the secret community for midwives in the making. So Nathan Welch, WELCH. You can tag him. And just carry on being brilliant. I look forward to it. Okay.
Yeah, so my YouTube channel is called Nathan Transmidwife, if people want to come and watch it. And I also always, so I'm just going to say one more thing, Ellie.
Yeah, do. Yeah, absolutely.
One of my policies, sort of for myself, my morals, if you will, is to approach things with open arms. So when we're feeling angry, conflicted, stressed, it's a very closed way of being. So you talk about me being calm and empathetic and all of these nice words that you say about me. And part of that is just doing that, just opening, being ready to receive whatever is there. And you don't have to take it all the way in, but just hear, listen, and be open. And then we'll learn the most, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have I have that in my head. I have take your armor off.
Yes.
Perhaps.
Yeah. And you have to in the birth space. And I kind of use it in my life as well. So awesome. And the reason I was saying that, I did actually have a reason for saying that, which is just if people, my arms are open. If people need to message me, contact me, if they're struggling, with anything, with LGBT issues, or as a student, or being different, because being different is hard, then I'm here and I'm here to listen. So cool. Lovely to see you.
All right. Take care, Nathan.
Bye.
See you soon. Bye now.